Yeah. So if your goal is to reduce taxes to as little as possible, but
Yes.
At some point you also want to sell a business and have it look like it's profitable enough for somebody to want to buy it. How do people look at that?
Oh, okay, great. And basically what you're getting at, and I've heard this from people is, hey, if I'm doing these tax strategies, somehow I'm going to be minimizing what my revenue is and all that. Most businesses are sold on the revenue side. Okay. So whether you're saving a lot of money in taxes and all that, first of all, if you do save money in taxes, it boosts your revenue and can increase your cash flow, which will ultimately help you sell for a higher multiple. Okay. So we're always trying to, and we do some business planning with our clients also. Also, when we sell on the back end, when people sell on the back end, we have several different strategies where we can structure things over time to minimize our taxes massively.
Your relationship with money matters. I'm Michelle Perkins, and this is the Money and You podcast, where I will be breaking down your relationship with money, offering tough love money tips, and a money dating plan that will focus on lifting the barriers to success to help pave the way for better money practices and increased wealth. It's time to take control to live a limit-free life. It starts today. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Money and You Show with Michelle Perkins. I'm so happy that you're here. We have a fabulous show. I love that it's this week. I love that we are airing a show like this the week of Independence Day because, as we know, wealth and money help us to be more not only financially independent, but to be able to have the freedoms and make the choices that we want to live our best lives. So today I have a fabulous, very knowledgeable guest, Mark Miller, and he is actually going to help us to see how the very wealthy strategize and get rich as a person who has worked in that arena for quite some time. So I'm going to tell you a little about Mark. Mark has spent over 30 years in the tax and financial services industry, helping his clients grow and protect their wealth. He has worked with hundreds of business owners, physicians, executives, and high net worth clients, cutting their taxes significantly. He helps them grow and protect their businesses and retirement assets in good times and bad, plus preserve long-lasting family legacies. Welcome, Mark.
Well, thank you, Michelle. It's a pleasure to be here today.
It's wonderful to have you. Your bio was much longer than that, but I figure we'll dive in and you can give us some more background. Tell us how you arrived in the place you're at right now.
Well, actually, I'm the CEO of Hilton Tax and Wealth Advisors, which is a spin-off firm of the Hilton Family Office. I'm actually the manager of the Hilton Family Office. It's a multi-family office. It's not a gigantic office, but we've got Hilton family members, various other multi-families that are in the office. I've been in the business for 30 years. I've been working with the Hiltons for years. Done all sorts of things with them. Hilton Tax and Wealth Advisors is kind of our spin-off company to kind of bring advanced institutional based or what we call smart money strategies more down to Main Street. So we have a real passion. My main partner is Brad Hilton, who is the grandson of Conrad Hilton, who was the original founder of Hilton Hotels. And we have a passion for bringing these kind of advanced, really incredible strategies more down to the average investor so they can take advantage of things that the wealthiest of the wealthiest do every day.
Yeah, thank you. That's fantastic. And I don't... When we talked, the family office, I realized was something that I don't know if a lot of people have familiarity with that. So do you want to just speak a little more about that?
Sure. So what a family office is, and actually the family office concept was started in the 1800s with the Rockefellers, that were having all these different advisors that were telling them all these different things, and they were getting poor financial advice because none of the advisors were really talking to each other. Ironically, it's kind of a problem that persists today in the financial field because most advisors, whether it's CPAs, financial services folks, insurance people, various other advisors in the financial world, they don't want to talk to each other. Well, the Rockefellers identified that, and once they did, they put together the first family office where they hired all these experts to come in and work just exclusively for them, and then to be able to basically for those advisors to talk back and forth. Within a number of years, a very short amount of years, they doubled their wealth. And the Rockefellers directly associated with doing a family office. So over the years, the family office caught on. There's been multi-family offices, which is what we are working toward, what's called a virtual family office, to where we can go out and get the best and the brightest in the country to come in and help all of our families, not just the Hilton family, but all of our families manage their money better and make smarter and more powerful and efficient decisions in their financial lives.
Yeah, thank you. I love this idea because it is something where I've even noticed in my, tinier world that my CPA and my financial advisor and, a couple other of my advisory people don't connect. And it's up to me to be like, well, my advisor says this when I'm talking to my CPA, and then going back to it. And I've been telling people for a while, it's important to get people together. Sometimes that's easier said than done. Yes. The people have to be willing, but it's a really important thing. The strategy can be so much better if these people are actually, interacting and discussing things together.
Yes, absolutely. And in our world, we call that synergy. And really, the family offices would not exist without it. And our concept, and really the things we're talking about today, is bringing, again, these advanced concepts down to Main Street. Will we bring along that strategy instead of the advisors being afraid to talk to each other? We allow them to collaborate and work together, which for the average investor, let's say it's somebody that has $500,000 or $250,000 or $1 million or whatever, ultimately over time that can be hundreds of thousands of more dollars, if not millions of more dollars in their pocket over time to help them work towards financial freedom faster.
Yeah, very interesting. So do you have suggestions on how people could move closer to that if they're not in that situation where there is a family office, but how can they sort of create a little of that?
Right. And well, again, that's kind of the concept of Hilton Tax and Wealth Advisors. Okay. Again, doing that more. And we've structured it to where when somebody comes on board with us, we kind of get the best of the best. So we call it's more of a virtual family office concept. And again, more down in Main Street, where we get the best and the brightest all over the country, if not the world, and we allow those people to all have that synergy and talk to each other. Now, if you don't have that ability or you're not connected up with us or whatever, I think it's vital that you at least try to get your advisors to talk to each other. But I will warn you, it's very tough because a lot of times they're just afraid of each other. They're afraid if they bring somebody in, they're going to contradict their advice or that they're going to pull assets away from them or something like that, which is just, it's really asinine, but it's the way, unfortunately, the way it kind of works on the retail side of the business as opposed to kind of more institutional, kind of smart money side of the business. So what I recommend to people is if they don't have some kind of structure to be able to do that, at least go and try to talk to your advisors to develop a dialogue. So you, in a sense, have to become your own quarterback of the team and get all these people to get together so they can discuss things and make decisions that are in your best interest. Because here's the problem. People don't understand that when you do, let's say when you do something with your financial advisor, generally that has a tax impact.
Right.
So if your CPA doesn't know that's going on or isn't there to advise and work with the advisor, then ultimately it's going to mean less money in your pocket long term.
Yeah, exactly. And so what you've created is a whole business really where people can have all the advisors sort of in a common area, common space where they do communicate just naturally. I love that. That is unique. And
that's just one aspect, because really the biggest thing we do is we bring these advanced wealth building strategies down to Main Street, so you don't have to have $20 or $30 million to tap into them. You can basically accomplish what you're trying to do at the highest levels of investment, of tax planning, of insurance planning, all of that. The highest levels. Let's say if you just have $500,000 or $1 million or $5 million or something. You don't have to be ultra wealthy to tap into these things. And it's been super successful for us. We thought when Brad Hilton and I had this passion and we said, we're going to do this, we were a little bit afraid. How are we going to bring these kind of strategies and truly structure them so they have lower minimums? And we thought we were only going to be able to do it with a few basic core strategies. And the exciting thing about it is we've done it with now hundreds of strategies.
Wow.
Whether it's tax strategies, investment strategies, different types of investments. We've been able to be really successful over the last several years at structuring these things. So again, the average investor can take advantage of what you always hear the term, the rich get richer.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you know that term, and everybody's heard that term. It's true. And primarily it's because they have access to things that you might say that the regular average investor doesn't have access to normally. So how do we, and that's what we've been basically doing, is figuring out how we can take care of that problem that's in the industry.
Yeah, you bring up such an interesting point, because I love thinking about mindset around money. And when you brought up the rich get richer, I feel like for a lot of people, just putting that out there, just saying those words causes them to give up versus causing them to get curious and say, okay, well, how are they getting richer? Because the term almost makes it seem like, if you are rich, you can get richer. If you're not, you might as well just forget it, So I think it's a really interesting point that doesn't have to be such a negative kind of feeling phrase.
Yeah, or an overwhelm. I totally get it. And the reality of it, it's kind of simpler than you think. And you'll hear it all the time. You'll hear about it investing. You hear the likes of Warren Buffett or folks at BlackRock talking about it. It's like the wealthiest of the wealthy do things that say normal investors on the retail side don't do things. Number one is, instead of focusing on returns, like you'll see on the retail side, great example of this, mutual funds. How do they sell mutual funds? Well, you'll always see that they sell it. Take a look at the 1, 3, 5, 10-year performance, and then pick a mutual fund that way. Mm-hmm. Well, that's based on returns. The wealthy don't invest, the wealthiest of the wealthiest don't invest that way. The first thing they look at is safety and security, or what we might call in the smart money people would call surety. And I write about this in my most recent book that came out called Hilton Wealth, surety is where they come into, if they're looking at an investment, they'll walk into a boardroom, and when they talk to an issuer or someone that's providing the investment, first and foremost, they want to know how their money's protected. Because in the space we work in the smart money space, the returns are just going to automatically be there in different areas. So the way that the rich stay rich is they might take 40, 50, 60, sometimes 70% of their portfolio and put it in a myriad of very safe, secure investments. It doesn't mean they won't make returns then, because they're going to take the other percentage they're not going to risk the farm, but they're going to take the other percentage and tap into specialize and have great access to private equity, alternative investments, advance some of the best money management in the entire world. That's still going to allow them to make often 10-12% per year, but with very little downside risk. So they're not going to lose the farm. They're not going to lose a lot of money if there's a huge downturn, and their wealth just keeps increasing year after year.
Yeah, it's coming back to me now, our earlier conversation, and I found this to be really fascinating because I do think there's a misconception that getting very wealthy is all about taking risk. That it, and again, people sort of give up. They're like, I don't have that kind of, income or assets or whatever to be able to risk it all like they think that the wealthy are doing. So I thought that was fascinating.
Yeah. And the fact of the matter is there's some core basic rules. I love Warren Buffett. He's got a lot of great stories and all that. Warren Buffett's a great example of someone in his career found value, did a lot of low volatility investing, found value, great value investments, value in the markets, and then allowed time to kind of do its thing. And first and foremost, protect. I mean, you may have heard this before, and your listeners may have heard this before, when Warren Buffett was asked one time, what's your number one rule of investing? And he said, don't lose money. Okay. Then they said, well, what's your number two rule of investing? And he said, look at rule number one. Okay. So don't lose money first and foremost if you can help it. And that's, again, how the rich get richer, by protecting the majority of their assets with real wealth assets, with safe, secure type of investments. And then they get their returns from taking risks with smaller portions of their portfolio.
And is there a percentage attached to that at all? Is there a percentage that's like the base that stays protected, or is it individual?
Yeah, it's individual. It's on an individual basis. Like when we work with clients, generally we have to go through a series of meetings with them to get to know them, to do some kind of deep planning, do an assessment of what they have currently, and then kind of take a look at what kind of investor they are and what they're comfortable with, how much risk they're comfortable with taking. But the biggest thing we see with retail investors, and we work with folks all day long that come in that have 60, 70, 80% of their money in the markets because the markets are going through the roof, and they're like, hey, we're going to be great. But I've seen that in the past, when as soon as the markets turn, especially, and I talk about this in my book, a lot of the retail strategies that used to work do not work anymore, like the 60-40 strategy, which is basically take a percentage of your money. 60-40 is a generic term for it, but let's say it's 60% in stocks, 40% in bonds. And if you have some stocks and you have some bonds, they're going to balance each other out. It doesn't work that way. I mean, the last few downturns, there have been people that have had portfolios like that have lost 50, 60, 70% of their portfolio because stocks and bonds went down at the same time. Okay. So there's a lot of retail strategies. They're still selling money out there, meaning bringing people in to manage money under the auspices of a 60-40 or a 50-50 or a 70-30 split. And it just doesn't work anymore. It's kind of a recipe for that to eventually wipe out your entire portfolio if you're not careful.
Wow. Okay. So how do you manage that? How do you keep that from happening to people?
Well, you do it by structuring a portfolio, again, like the wealthiest of the wealthiest do, where you take the majority, not the majority, but it could be the majority of your portfolio, put it in safe, secure assets of many different types that are available at the Hilton Financial Network, and some on the retail side too, that keep the majority of your money safe. And then let's plug in those strategies, those private equity alternative strategies, and some, high quality managed money with a smaller percentage of the assets. Okay. So if the markets go down, you're not, both your stocks and your bonds aren't going down at the same time. Maybe just that 20 or 25% of your portfolio is going down, but the rest of the assets are staying stable at the same time.
Yeah, very interesting.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. Hey, can you give a couple of examples of some of these higher quality, investments and things that maybe the average investor is not being told about or seeing?
Or doesn't have, the biggest thing is doesn't have the access to.
Okay, yeah.
And that's what we're trying to remedy. For instance, like on the private equity side, people hear that and they're like, oh, private equity, that sounds like, very convoluted, and what's involved there. Well, there are, thousands and thousands of companies out there that are what's all called on the private equity or institutional side of the business that are providing offerings every day to the very wealthy investors. Now, we've structured a lot of those to come again a little more down to Main Street. But as an example, some of these private equity firms might provide a direct investment in a burgeoning company where you can become a principal, but yet they're designed, they have surety on them to where, let's say that something would happen to that investment, that your principal is protected and you're going to get paid back, but you're taking a little risk. A lot of them provide direct notes because many of these companies need capital.
Right.
So they'll provide direct notes that are backed up by direct access or liens against properties or whatever, but then they guarantee an interest rate, like a 6% or 8% or 10% interest rate, some even 12% that we work with. So those are great examples of what the wealthiest of the wealthiest invest in to protect their money to a greater extent. Now, obviously, there's the standard, government bonds, the CDs, things like that. There are brokered CDs that tend to pay higher interest rates that are on the institutional side. So those are pretty kind of standard more. But then we help our clients tap into some of these really even higher level opportunities, getting some great surety, but getting guaranteed interest rates or things along those lines.
Okay. And are there rules that preclude people with lower, net worth from being able to take advantage of these, or how have you?
Well, generally there have been.
Okay.
The rule is that the rules have for many, many, many decades have been that the kind of limiting the barrier to be able to be involved with these is money. So if you don't have $10 million or a minimum of $1 million for some of them, or $2 million or $5 million or $20 million, whatever, then you can't invest. That's what we are basically fixing, to where we have some of our offerings are as little as $50,000 minimum that people can invest in, that are these higher end private equity and alternative strategies.
Okay. And how are you able to provide those? I mean,
through the structure that we had through Hilton Tax and Wealth Advice, through the Hilton Financial Network, which is hundreds of different. So the other thing we haven't even talked about too is the wealthy, and we're very good on the Hiltons are some of the best in the world and known for this on the institutional smart money side, being some of the best, have some of the best tax mitigation strategies really in the world. So we bring those down to Main Street. Let's say you're paying $50,000 in taxes, or let's say $30,000 in taxes. Generally, in the first year, we can design a plan to cut those taxes in half. And then another book that I wrote not long ago called The Tax-Free Business Owner talks about how we can zero your taxes out over a period of time, which is another way that the wealthiest of the wealthy grow their wealth, is because taxes are the biggest expense of your life. Well, if you can get to the zero tax bracket, which we don't do that with everyone, but a good percentage of our folks we do, then that's just going to mean faster wealth creation and help you get to financial freedom faster.
Yeah, very interesting. And, that's such a hot button topic anyway, the rich not paying taxes, for example. So can you enlighten us just a little bit on how one does that? So, because there are legitimate ways that people do this.
Absolutely. And of course, the Hiltons do everything at the highest level, moral, ethical, all within the laws, everything legal. There's three main ways that you can save that you really won't get this from your CPA, because most CPAs are just advanced tax preparers. But there's through direct codes. And at the Hilton Financial Network and the Hiltons for years have dived deep into the codes, much, not like in the surface level, like most people work with their CPAs on. There's private letter rulings. There's case law that we can go to. And then we're able to, right now we have 130 plus tax planning, tax mitigation strategies that can reduce your taxes. We put together formalized tax plans that put all these strategies in a plan that's custom designed for our clients, and then generally we'll cut folks' taxes in half the first year, and then once they engage with us, we'll work with them with some proactive tax planning CPAs to reduce their taxes even further, and hopefully get them to the zero tax bracket over time.
Yeah, thank you. I love that. So it's really just knowing the code on a deeper level than most people do, because there's a lot in there that isn't being taken advantage of.
And we're also, because people are always, when they come on board, because they haven't been exposed to some of these smart money strategies, they're like, oh, I'm going to get audited because their CPA tells them that.
Right.
If you do something different or not normally what their CPA does with them, maybe some entity planning, hey, put money into a qualified plan, then if you do something different than that, you're going to get audited, right? That is a total myth. And I kind of go through that in my tax planning book. And the reality of it is when we build a formalized tax plan, we actually reduce massively the risk of being audited for most of our clients where they were previously.
Interesting.
So it's just the opposite, because we can build in a tax audit reduction component into all of our plans that will minimize that risk completely.
Wow, very interesting. So, yeah, that's fascinating. And I hope people who are fairly new in business, or even if they're not new in business, I feel like for a lot of them, they're so focused on, what they're providing, first of all, and then, how they're growing their revenue and this and that. And tax strategy, I think, gets put off until later. And it's really so important to do that from the start.
It is. And I will tell you, the wealthiest of the wealthiest, and this is what we do at Hilton Tax and Wealth Advisors, always have a tax vein running through everything that they do. Okay. And that's what a lot of retail investors don't understand. Yeah, they realize that taxes are important. Don't get me wrong. And I think everybody knows that. But they go off and invest over here and just kind of a little bit forget about the taxes. I just want to get the best returns I can get, right? Find the best investments I have and have the best investment portfolio. And they've forgotten about the taxes. I will tell you that we have probably over the year, just because of some of the advanced tax mitigation strategies we use through the Hilton Financial Network, we've probably put more millions in clients' pockets over the years doing that than we have with investing. Now, don't get me wrong, we think we've got some of the best investment portfolios through the Hilton True Wealth portfolios that there are out there. But sometimes, depending on a client's situation, how much money they make, all of that, the chunks of money that we can save them on their taxes over time, all legal, moral, ethical, will be many more times than what they can make in their investment portfolio. And ultimately, that's money that comes back that you can reinvest and build your portfolio too with.
Yeah. Wow. That's so good. It's so important for people to know. again, I feel like tax strategy is sort of a necessary evil, but people don't get that excited about it. So it's very much what you're saying. They get excited about the investment piece.
I honestly believe now, and I found out about tax planning in the early 2000s. I won't go into my story because we got limited time here, but it was shocking to me when I really found out about tax planning and started to save. I mean, I put millions and millions of dollars in my own pocket just from putting a tax plan together. Over the years, I realized, and that's why I started providing this to my clients and structuring. That's one of the things that Brad Hilton has loved about what we do is formalized tax planning, because in my opinion, especially for business owners, so don't get me wrong, high net worth folks, physicians, executives that are highly paid really need tax planning. But in my opinion, you need a tax plan as much as you need a business plan, and maybe even more. Your business will generate a lot of income, obviously, and a lot of cash flow. But again, when you start compounding and layering all of those, a great tax plan on top of it, all of a sudden you've got massive tax flow freed up to help build your business, for your business to invest in itself, or just invest in your own personal portfolios.
Wow, this is so interesting. When you bring up the physicians, I know a little about physicians and dentists and practice sales. And one of the things that has come up is, okay, if I manage my taxes really well and I'm showing, I'm going to assume the weight of this is to show as little profit as possible. Then when I go to sell my business, I have a no profit business. Can you just kind of clarify that?
So say that question once again.
Yeah. So if your goal is to reduce taxes to as little as possible, but at some point you also want to sell a business and have it look like it's profitable enough for somebody to want to buy it. How do people look at that?
Oh, okay, great. And basically what you're getting at, and I've heard this from people, is, hey, if I'm doing these tax strategies, somehow I'm going to be minimizing what my revenue is and all that. Most businesses are sold on the revenue side, okay? So whether you're saving a lot of money in taxes and all that, first of all, if you do save money in taxes, it boosts your revenue and can increase your cash flow, which will ultimately help you sell for a higher multiple. Okay. So we're always trying to, and we do some business planning with our clients also. Also, when we sell on the back end, when people sell on the back end, we have several different strategies where we can structure things over time to minimize our taxes massively. Where a lot of business owners really get killed is when they don't have expert tax planning. Then they just sell, they pay huge amounts of taxes. We just worked with a client that sold their business for about $36 million. If they wouldn't have met us and wouldn't have we wouldn't have put a plan together for them to sell it properly, they would have paid about $9 million in taxes. We reduced that to $1 million over the course of the next 5 years as they structure that sale. So that's a big thing. And ultimately that just puts more money into your pocket. But I do know what you're saying. And the question you're asking is, a lot of people have a concern that if you're doing some tax planning, you're reducing your taxes somehow in your business, that somehow it's going to bring the value of your business down. And it's just the opposite.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. That's really important. I love what you were just saying, because it also brings about, when people set their goals, what's the difference between the way the very wealthy sort of set goals and the way people who, maybe the people who are coming to you now with newer venture are setting goals? Because I feel like the clarity is often not there.
Yeah. Let's talk about some of the psychology, which I know you really delve into.
I love that. Yeah.
First of all, the wealthy tend to have, and the people that maybe they weren't wealthy, but then they became wealthy, self-made folks, what you see in them is they tend to have more patience, tend to be a little bit more disciplined, and realize that part of the component of building wealth is time. You have to have some time, okay? And have to be patient and allow portfolios to mature and do what they do over time, okay? When you don't, and you'll see with the average retail investor, again, part of it's not their fault because they're fed this return, 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 return. So many people get caught in this cycle of, I got to find the best investment that's going to absolutely perform the best. It's almost let's be honest, it's a greed thing.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
When you tend to see the wealthy, and I've been around a lot of wealthy people, you tend to see just a little bit more wisdom on the side of being patient and being disciplined and sticking with an approach and allowing it to do its thing over time. Because you're not going to get wealthy in 5 or 10 years, okay? You're not going to just miraculously hit the lottery or something like that. Most people aren't. There's some people that hit the lottery, but you know those stories.
Yeah.
And part of that, maybe I should kind of expand on that.
Sure.
Because actually, it's a good thing that you have patience with investing because it teaches you, it gives you the wisdom to pause at the right times and be aggressive at the right times. Okay. So that the wealthy tend to teach that themselves that over time, they learn it, and then they get a taste of a couple successes once they've allowed time to do its thing, and then they're off to the races. Then the things kind of click in their mind.
Yeah.
And then they're kind of off to the races. And then they have that foundational wisdom to then make quality decisions, be disciplined, and allow that patience to work things out for them over time.
Yeah, I think that's very interesting. Thank you for sharing that, because I think people are looking for a quick win or a windfall of some kind in some way, some investment or something, some business, whatever it is that, like you say, over 5 or 10 years is going to make them rich and then they can retire.
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard that from many people when they get into something. So I think that's really good advice. And it's not that those things don't ever happen.
Right. But the percentages are very small. Now, that doesn't mean that we're not seeking out, for instance, right now, there's a, area out there, everybody's heard of crypto and knows what's going on there. There's a lot of opportunity there, and there are a lot of people that have gotten rich very quickly in crypto. Okay. So we can't discount that, but how are we approaching the crypto space? Because technically it's an alternative investment. We're approaching it, take a small portion of your portfolio. One of the things that we're working on right now is possibly putting together a Hilton crypto fund that would allow for very, very good returns, but we're also attaching some surety to it and putting some of these kind of wealthiest of the wealthy strategies, attaching it to there. So it doesn't mean that we're still not going for returns. It's just that we're going to put well-balanced portfolios together, and some things are going to work out, but if some things don't, we don't go back 10 steps and have to start all over.
Right.
Or have 50% less money and go, oh my gosh, and be so discouraged. Now, what am I going to do? How am I going to get myself out of this hole?
Yeah, this has been really, really interesting. I see so much value in what you're bringing to people. Can you tell us a little, go over your books again, and then help us know how people can get in touch with you?
Yeah. So again, the Hiltons have been very involved in the tax mitigation space. So we've worked with them when we first started Hilton Tax and Wealth Advisors. We worked a lot with kind of some advanced tax mitigation, putting together and structuring tax plans, design tax plans for clients. And we've kind of gradually moved into, and we did that on purpose because the Hiltons are so good at it. And now we're kind of moving into the more advanced wealth building that involves a lot of safety, security, less fees, even longer term, because we have less volatility. We tend to get better returns in our portfolios than the retail side. So my first book was called The Tax-Free Business Owner, which is apropos to all kinds of people, not just business owners. And that came out a few years ago. We have just finished, and I've just finished my next book in conjunction with Brad Hilton, called Hilton Wealth, How to Invest Like an American Dynasty. That teaches you how the Hiltons have built their wealth and maintained their wealth over the generations. And so that just literally came out just about a week or so ago. And we're working on getting that out to current clients, but also new potential clients too.
Fantastic. Okay, well, and obviously you can find that book on Amazon, anywhere else, or is it in the bookstores? How can people find it?
The easiest way to get it, and you can get it free through us, is just go to our website, which is HiltonWealth.com, either one of those books, HiltonWealth.com. I am not sure because I don't handle that part of the business, all the IT stuff and everything, but I'm pretty sure that they at least have my first book, which is The Tax-Free Business Owner, up there. And I'm sure shortly we'll have the other book, Hilton Wealth. If you want either one of those, just contact us. We'll get you a complimentary copy out, and you don't have to pay for it at all.
That's fantastic. What a great offer for people. And in terms of just having a conversation with you, maybe about how they might use your services for tax and investing, just reach out again?
Sure. Just do the same thing. Go to HiltonWealth.com. Contact us directly. There'll be a couple different ways to contact us on the website. Say what you'd like. If you want to talk to me personally, I talk to my folks generally at first, and then we get team members involved. Okay. And I'd be happy to have a conversation with anybody that's listening to the podcast today.
Thank you so much. This has been so informative, but also inspiring. I mean, giving people a lot of hope, I think, that they could really be much smarter with their money and implement some of the things that the very wealthy people do. And I think we should all be paying attention to that. I think we need to stop thinking small in terms of, well, that's for the wealthy, because we can do a lot of the same things. So
absolutely.
Thank you for bringing that to people.
Spot on.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Mark, it was a pleasure talking to you, and I love what you're doing. And I will be putting the information that you talked about, contacting you, how to, in the show notes, so people can do just that. So, yeah, thank you so much.
Michelle. It's been a pleasure visiting with you today.
Yeah, I really appreciate your time and what you're doing. A great service for people. So,
thank you.
And listeners, thank you for being here on the show. We love having you listen to the Money and You show. We can bring great guests like Mark Miller onto the show, as we have been. If you share the show with a friend, that's our ask to you. If you can share the show and let other people know about what we're doing here on the Money and You show, and helping to educate and help you develop that relationship with money, so you're not just ignoring it or taking it for granted, but actually interacting and working with your money so that you can live a more limit-free life. And we will be we have a regular newsletter, so please sign up for that at limitfreelife.com. And I'm going to start putting out a new Monday or Friday, I haven't decided yet, but a little extra money mindset tip that's going to go out every week. So if you would like that, just get in touch with me at limitfreelife.com. You can connect with us too if you have ideas for topics for the show or questions you want to ask at team@limitfreelife.com. So, great having you here. Hope to see you next week.